Welcome everyone to Unsheathed Sword Reviews. I'm Vic.
And I'm John.
And today we're bringing you our official review of the Angus Trim XVIIIb.8 longsword. So John, we have another 8 trim, don't we?
It's a horrible, horrible burden to bear, but somehow we're standing up to the pressure.
Somehow we're soldiering on as best we can.
Exactly.
So real quick, we should mention that this is not our 18B.8. G Trizzle, as we call him, friend of the show, was gracious enough to lend us a few different swords for us to review. You can check out a first impressions video of all of them on the channel right now. But this is one of the swords that we picked up from him. Note that the price is $1,360. I wish it was $300.
Buy
10 of them.
Yeah, exactly, for sure.
$1,360 US. And we did not pay that for this sword, but we are approaching it as if we spent our own money on it, right,
exactly.
John?
Yes, absolutely. And it's also worth noting that we do, unfortunately, have to give it back. He didn't give us this to keep. So,
although we're still on the fence whether or not he's just going to get rifle cases full of money. We'll see.
That's a solid possibility.
How financially irresponsible we want to be.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
All right, so John, we are both fortunate enough to own 3 A-trim swords.
Yes.
We've gone to his shop a few different times. You can check out videos on the channel where we talk about that. We've seen an array of them multiple times. So I think it's fair to say in terms of high-end makers, these might be the swords that we have the most experience with.
Yeah, well, that's certainly the case. Absolutely.
So you were pretty enamored with this sword off the bat.
Yes.
What do you think of it in terms of aesthetics and fit and finish?
Okay, so I think that 18Bs are fantastic swords. I love them. I love the way they look. I think this might be one of the best looking 18Bs that I've seen. And the thing I like about it the most is the flared shoulders at the ricasso. I think that looks absolutely amazing. In general, I think what you get with this sword is what you would expect from Angus Trim. Same level of fit and finish that he always delivers. You know, I think that the grip is a standard A-trim grip. You have 2 really nice risers in the middle and then 1 on either end of the grip. It's very nice for indexing. It feels really good in the hand. It's everything's standard that you would get with an A-trim. And it's got the blued furniture, which I think is really, really nice. Looks really excellent. In general, I think the fit and finish on this sword is really good. One thing that there is to notice about this particular model, and the other thing too about Angus Trim swords, each one's individual. They're not mass produced, so every single one has little foibles and things about it.
Right.
On this one, there's a little bit of an asymmetry in the grinding of the shoulders. So it's not a turnoff to me at all, and I don't think it would be to most people, but it is worth mentioning that it's there.
Yeah, so that's a good point to mention, and I feel like this is very representative of an Angus Trim sword in that if that aesthetic is something you like, you're going to love this.
Absolutely.
If Angus Trim's style aesthetically is not really up your alley, then this really isn't going to change your mind on that.
Right.
And you're right that there is asymmetries in that ricasso, and there's asymmetries all throughout the sword. And that's kind of a thing, though, with any sword that he makes. All the Angus Trim swords I own have asymmetries in them. Yeah. He's not going for machined perfection. He's not going for Albion level fit and finish, even though they're in the same comparable price ranges. Right. We've talked about before, and what we will talk about later, with A-trims, you're paying for the handling, right? Yes. And if that's not up your alley, then the sword's not going to be up your alley, but it's up most people's alley. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, right. I can't imagine like transitioning into handling. I can't imagine swinging this sword and hitting targets with it and being sad about it. Yeah. Like anybody that knows what they're doing with the sword is going to be, even those that don't, are very happy. And
so you hit the nail on the head talking about its typology. 18Bs are such a wide range of swords can fit into that in terms of blade length, blade width, in terms of like handling characteristics. They're really wide in that regard. However, the like quintessential 18B is basically this to me in my brain. Right?
I agree with this. Is very much like a well balanced cut and thrust longsword. Right.
Yeah. And so that's what 18Bs were, right? So you're at the apex of plate armor. Lots of people running around with not so much armor. So you need a sword that is good at both. Me personally, my favorite types of longswords are an 18B, a 16A, and a 12A. 18Bs, like John said, they just look right. Something about them just looks right. It looks like the quintessential medieval longsword to me. I own several. Go figure.
You own several you have several by Angus Trim in the house right now. So
yeah, that's true.
You like 18s.
But yeah, I do. And so but for good reason, because like John said, we'll get into handling. They handle amazingly well. And we've previously reviewed the 18B.16, which is radically different than this sword in terms of handling, but still in the same typology, which blows my mind.
It's totally that I think expresses the breadth of different swords you can have in this typology, and not just in Type 18 in general. Because my God, you have freaking great swords in that too, with the 18Es, like they're huge.
And arming swords and hand and a half sword,
But even within the range of what's considered an 18B, there is tons and tons of difference.
Yes.
Yeah, it's wild.
So when I was looking to buy my first H-Trim sword, I believe last year, I was looking at Age of Chivalry, and they had an 18B.10 and an 18B.8. And those were the two that I was going back and forth between. Right. And I ended up going with the 18B.10. I love that sword. It's crazy, super agile. And a sword we'll review at some point on the channel. However, if I had gotten this one, I would be really, really happy because this is, like I said, more of the quintessential type 18B. The 18B.10 is really, really light. It's like 2 pounds, 6 ounces.
Yeah.
This feels more similar to my Strasbourg, which is based on an 18B.13. There's only like a 2 ounce difference, and the handling between the two,
very similar.
One's slightly more agile. This one has a little bit more authority. Yeah. But both of them, you pick it up and you're like, this feels perfect. Then you pick the other one up. No, this feels perfect. You know what I mean? It's just preference at that point.
And what's interesting is, Vic mentioned that his other, your really fast one, that's the type
18B.10.
.10. Yeah. So that's 2 pounds, 6 ounces?
Yeah.
This is only 2 pounds, 10 ounces, okay? 2 pounds, 10.5 ounces. And they feel like radically different swords. And again, it's because the overall weight isn't that much different. It's just where the weight is.
Yes.
So in this sword, it has a pretty far out point of balance at 5 1/4 inches. So that does add some authority. It makes it a bit less maneuverable, but a ton more cutting authority.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting how it's not so much the weight of the sword itself, it's where the weight is, changes the handling completely. And again, both are perfect for what they're supposed to be for. So.
Right. And with this sword, so like the cutting is phenomenal. Like you feel like it's easily redirectable. You feel like you can get a lot of authority on it. You feel like you could use it one hand when you want to. Also, I feel like I could poke you in the eye if I wanted to. You know what I mean? Like I feel like the tip control on this is phenomenal. Like this is literally, I think, just the perfect blend of everything I would want a longsword to do.
I tend to agree. Which also means that it probably doesn't thrust as well as like a 16A will, right?
Of course, no.
And it doesn't cut as well as a more cut-oriented
as like
sword.
a 13A
yeah,
would,
exactly, yeah. Or an 18C.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, by design. So this is supposed to do both things very well, not be specialized in either.
Right. And it does.
And it does. It's phenomenal. It's so much fun to cut with. Like if this were the only example of an 18B like I owned, I'd be happy because I would have the quintessential longsword. And you're right, the shouldered ricassos, the way the guard flares upward, that just gives it a little bit more style, like a little bit more personality than like just a straight up regular sword, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, the way the guard flares up like that, it's almost leaning like towards the 18E look that they have. They all have the Danish versions. All have those big upswept quillins, so it's kind of cool to see that.
So yeah, I think the handling, it's an H-Trim, man. It's going to be good. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fast. This could be a competition cutter if you wanted it to be.
Easily, yeah.
Yes.
Like this would be good enough to match your skill, whatever your skill is. Yes. Yeah, I think anybody could win with this.
So like people like us who are just backyard cutters for fun, we don't need a sword like this, but damn, is it fun to have.
It sure is fun to have, yeah. And so I like it too, just kind of in terms of switching over to overall value now, I think it's worth it to pick it up, definitely. I mean, given okay, now again, we say this every time we review a high-end sword. You can collect swords and never, ever spend over $1,000 on a sword and have a great time and have great representations of any kind of sword that you want, pretty much. With that said, there is a market that's up that high price-wise, and there's a lot of different things you can get there. And so I think some people, for example, the bougier end of the spectrum, like my friend Vic here, the fit and finish of an H-Trim may not be what they're looking for. But if what you're looking for is performance, and if you really, really want to feel like what an 18B.8 should feel like, it's worth it to me. Agreed.
As someone who does, when I spend over $1,000 on a sword, my rule to myself is I have to love it.
Exactly.
I can't just like it. I can't like it. I need to love it. And I really thought that aesthetics were going to be the most important thing next to handling when I get that high. And honestly, like I love Albions and I love Valiant Armories because they hit the aesthetic right where I want it to be and still handle phenomenally well. H-Trims, like we mentioned, have some more imperfections in them, and they look very uniform, utilitarian. Like you can tell that this is an H-Trim, but the handling is so good that for me personally, I look past the fact that aesthetically they're not my favorite, and to me they're still worth it. $1,360 US. If you have the money, this is worth it.
Yes, you know exactly when you pick it up and you hold it in your hand, you know exactly where every one of those dollars went.
Right. And if this is going to be the sword that you save up for, this will be your favorite sword. This will be your quintessential badass longsword. That will be the pride of your collection. If this is the thing you're going to reach for, I think that's worth it also.
Completely agree. Absolutely. It's just, it's a lovely, lovely sword. I really like it. And honestly, this is the one that for me is in the most danger of being converted into cash in a rifle box to bring back, because I really like, I wake up at night dreaming about this sword. So
he's literally texted me in the middle of the night. And I work crazy hours, so he knows I'm awake. He just texts me, I'm thinking about that 18B. And I was just like, oh, I hear you.
We're normal people.
Totally. Totes. So yeah, a great sword. I recommend it. Thank you again, Mr. Trim, so much for lending us this sword. Couldn't believe you wanted to give us swords to review. Like, what reality are we in, right?
Unbelievable.
It has to be a poorly run simulation. That's what we have to be in.
Right? It's cool, though. Yes!
Was it like his apples?
My man!
Yeah, my man! Little Rick and Morty reference for you. There you go. Shiny. Okay, so yes, buy the sword. We think it's awesome. That's all I got, John. Anything else?
That's about all I've got as well. Thanks for watching. And keep your eyes peeled. There's going to be more reviews coming out for Angus Trim swords that he has lent us. And you can also look at the first impressions video of all of the Trim swords that we were or lent. You can watch that right now. So thank you for watching. And anything else from you, Vic?
Nope. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications.
Peace.